Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best items available, including some of my own personal recommendations. Thanks! What's going on, YouTube? Middle Complex here, and today I've got a really cool knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the automatic Protech and Les George SBR. This is a really cool little automatic knife. I'm a big fan of Les George, and I'm also a huge fan of Protech. So this is a recipe for an awesome knife for me. I have reviewed the larger Protech Rockeye, which I believe is discontinued right now, and I love that knife. That's the knife I use as an example to demonstrate exactly how durable Protech knives are. That was my buddy's knife, and it is on the surface it looks like it was put through a meat grinder, but it is 100% still functional, solid, etc. I am a huge fan of Protech knives. It is my opinion that they make the greatest side-opening automatic knives in the world, and they are US produced. They are solid, they fire hard, they can absolutely be used. Protech knows what they're doing. I'm a big Protech fan. So maybe there'd be a little bit of bias in here, but I feel like, letting you guys know. I've experienced a lot of Protech knives. I own some. Really great stuff. This was sent to me by @AddictedToEDC on Instagram. Please give him a follow. It's because of people like him that I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content. It's also because of my generous patrons. Thanks so much for supporting me during this time. If you'd like to get your hands on some of these cool stickers, there is, of course, a link down in the description for my Patreon, so you can check that out if you want to. The support would mean the world to me. Let's go ahead and get a measurement on this guy. Overall length of the SBR coming in at 6.5 inches overall. The blade length coming in, is that right? 6.5 inches? Yeah. And then the blade length is coming in at about 2.6, something like that. Here's what's cool. I believe that makes this, am I right? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Is this Cali legal? Is it? I can't remember if it's 2.5 or 3 inches. I can't remember. In any case, this will make this automatic knife legal in a few places where automatic knives otherwise would not be. The majority of automatic knives are longer in blade length. Protech does a great job of catering to areas. Well, obviously, automatic knives. People are still like, if it's a knife, but you push a button and that makes the blade come out. So it's obviously 1,000 times more dangerous than any other sharpened object, regardless of length, right? That's silly, but that's the way that it is, right? Well, Protech goes, okay, so they have a few models that are smaller to cater to those people, and that's something that's really, really cool. So again, correct me if I'm wrong about where it's legal, but that size is a benefit in a lot of places. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Up against the Ontario Rat Model 1, let's move this guy down here. Rat 1 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall. So you can see there, this is not a big knife. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 inches overall. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. Spyderco Para 3 coming in at 7.25 inches overall. So you can see there, overall size is closest to the Spyderco Para 3 in terms of what I've got out here. But the cutting edge is almost exactly the same as the Spyderco Para 3. So that's something to point out there. I think that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check on this guy. Get out my handy-dandy WIA bit selector and WIA magnetic stubby driver. Two items that are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them both down in my Amazon store. The one that I referenced at the beginning of every video. Just pull open the store and look for knife maintenance. Now, this guy, I'm realizing we can't do, we're not going to do with the bit set, is because it's all hex. But hex are just as common as Torx. This looks to be the equivalent, whatever the equivalent size. So it's the well, how do I word this? It's not a teeny tiny hex. It's probably about the equivalent head size to a T8 Torx head, but in hex, which is fine. I've never had, I've got another bit set over here that's a cheaper one, and I've never had a problem adjusting Protech knives. You can absolutely get into them. You can absolutely take them apart. I've never had a problem with stripping. Just make sure you're using the appropriate head size. I was thinking that the body screws were Torx, but that's just not the case here. In any case, there's minimal hardware. You can get into these. There is, of course, a spring in there, but it's nothing ultra complicated. Just make sure that you know exactly what you're doing. And also, you know, as is the case with many knife companies, make sure that you understand their warranty. Contact them first if there's a reason you're taking it apart because you think there's something wrong with your knife. Contact Protech and just talk it over with them, right? And let them decide whether or not you should send it in. But yeah, they don't lock you out of the knife, which is pretty cool. Let's do carry profile. So up against the Spyderco Para 3, you can see there, this is fairly, it's not thick, it's just thicker than the Spyderco Para 3, right? So it's got a nice robust feel to it, which keeps it from feeling like a really dainty little pocket knife. It really does feel very, very capable. In terms of carry profile, up against two knives that have awkward carry profiles that nobody ever complains about, the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3, you can see there it's nowhere near as long as either, and it's actually shorter than both, which makes this, you know, despite it being a little bit thicker than these knives, it's actually really easy to carry. This might not be your favorite thing to carry in super tight pants, right, or leather pants or whatever, but for the most part, this is going to be an extremely easy to carry item. This is made out of Type 3 hard-coat anodized aluminum, and we have a blade stock thickness of, let me get it real quick. I'm going to guess this is 125 to 130 thousandths, but I'm oftentimes wrong. Yeah, it says 123. We'll go ahead and try again there. Yeah, it's 125 thousandths. So we're in Benchmade Reptilian or Ritter Hogue territory. Blech. Overall weight coming in at 3.03 ounces, which is perfectly fine. If you consider anything heavier than the Benchmade Mini Bug Out to be heavy, then this will be too heavy for you. But for the other 99% of us, this is an easy object to carry, so I don't have a problem with that. I think we covered everything there. Let's go ahead and move on here. So this knife comes in a ton of different configurations, and as of right now, the moment of this review, I am sad to say that I am not seeing a lot of these in stock. I do have one link. Hopefully, the one that I found is still in stock by the time you know, this review comes out. So you can check. If you're watching this 2 years in the future, obviously everything has changed. I'm also going to link Protech knives in general. If you have not looked through Protech's line, please do. Protech makes some excellent stuff. So just check down there if you want to check them out. But yeah, I've seen these in, they've got little texture patterns, some of them, blue, black. What's interesting is I thought that this was done by the person who, and by the way, this is a user. We're going to point that out for a couple of reasons here, but I thought that was done custom by the person who sent it in. I was like, I've never seen a Protech like that. Obviously, he did this himself. No, actually, that is a finish that is done by Protech. They've got the DLC-coated ones. They got the satin ones, the tumbled ones, blah, blah, blah. A bunch of different colors. Really, really cool. All of the different variants that you can get if and when they become available again. Protech does things in short runs, right? Sometimes they do a run of something and they stop production on the model entirely, and sometimes they do a short run, then they change things up, and then they come back, right? So we'll see. Here's what I think is really, really neat. I love 154 cm and CPM 154, which is usually what a Protech knife comes in, and it's a very appropriate steel because it's incredibly well-rounded, and Protech knives are not pocket jewelry. They are meant to be used. I have proof of this. There's always at least one person that's like, well, if it costs that much, it's pocket. No, that's not pocket jewelry. It's made to be used. The one that I use as an example, my old Rockeye video, you can go check that one out. I have to resharpen that for that guy all the time because he's constantly using it, and I'm happy to because the thing just holds up. But anyways, usually it's 154 cm. What's interesting about the SBR is that it's an S35VN, which is my second favorite knife steel behind 154 cm. The benefits, of course, here being that it is, I believe, a little bit more stainless, definitely more edge retentive, and I think the ease of sharpening is somewhere in the same vicinity. Another steel that was, that is very, very well rounded, but S35VN was actually made for folding knives. So that's great. It's neat. It's neat to see because like I said, most Protechs are in, 154 cm. It's nice to see, switching it up and going S35VN. So that's pretty cool. Let's take a look at the anatomy here. So this is, of course, an automatic knife. To disengage it, you push the button, comes back down, clicks into place, and then you push the button, and it fires. We didn't actually talk about deployment there. How's the action on this guy is usually a section of my reviews. The action is exactly what you'd expect from a Protech. You push that button and it fires. And despite it being a little blade, it fires hard. Anytime I hand a Protech off to a buddy and I say, you know, hold on to it, they're like, okay, I know my way around it. And every single time it surprises them. You know why? Because every automatic or assisted knife they've handled up to that point has been somewhere between absolute garbage and a Kershaw assisted folding knife, which is nowhere near the same feeling as a Protech Auto. These things fire. I've seen them jump out of people's hands, right? They do fire hard. It is very, very satisfying. I love the action on Protechs. Really, really good. What's great is when they're tightened down appropriately, you hold that button, that spring will always fire the blade all the way back out into its position. Don't do that. It's a good way to cut yourself. It's a stupid thing to do with a knife, but I don't mind the sacrifice to demonstrate. Really, really cool. So the blue on this guy actually looks really nice. You can see there hard coat anodized aluminum, you know, it scratches and it'll show through. That's just the product of that stuff. You know, it's nowhere near as like delicate as paint, which is what you'd see on a really crappy, you know, junker knife. No, this stuff's very durable. You know, you're gonna, most of the time, the hard coat anodizing is gonna resist. Any scratch you get on it is likely more just the powder of whatever it is that it rubbed up against. Every now and then it will scratch all the way through. I kind of feel like that gives the knife character. And aluminum being an incredibly stainless material to begin with, you really don't have to worry. You know, it's not like a coating that's keeping it from, you know, becoming corroded immediately or anything like that. It does assist with that, but it's not like if, oh my gosh, it scratched through, it's going to rust. No, that's not what's going to happen. It's incredibly durable. Hard coat anodized aluminum is incredibly durable, and it is appropriate. It gives the knife balance, it gives the knife durability, and it keeps it very lightweight. So I have no problem with that. Like I said, this knife is made in the USA, which is fantastic. The presentation side of the scale is great. There's just the pivot, and then there's the button. And then the rest of it is just a nice, well-rounded handle. That's really great. The blade up here, unlike the actual VECP, the jimping up here is absolutely functional. We've got some texturing down here. This is actually really, really comfortable, despite it being a 3-finger knife. Now, I can understand that. I'll give it a pass. I like 4-finger position knives, but this knife was meant to cater to people who cannot carry larger autos or just normal automatic knives, right? This knife is going to be super beneficial for people who like to carry a really small, lightweight EDC and or people who are limited by the law in their area, which is great. So for that reason, I don't have a problem with that. The positioning, you know, where I put my hands on this knife, right, it is definitely designed for the human hand, so it's very easy to hang on to, and you can definitely bear down on that knife. I mean, this, truthfully, I don't feel like there's anything I would be afraid to use this knife for. It's a small knife, but it feels extremely capable. This is not like the Quiet Carry Waypoint or Drift, which are great knives, but they're not made for the same type of abuse. This thing, I feel like, could handle anything that any other Protech could handle, and judging by my experience with Protech, I would say that's just about anything. The blade stock is thick enough, the flat is wide enough that there's a lot of thickness being carried out, and a tip that I wouldn't say is delicate, right? You still have a lot of cutting edge. The edge on a Protech is always done really, really well. This is a, I mean, it's a Les George designed blade, right? The blade is incredibly versatile. It's a simple drop point blade, and it's ready to go, right? This isn't the absolute, you know, most laser beam edge. It's not going to be, you know, shaving wax paper or grapes, toilet paper, anything like that. But will it cut? Will it perform EDC tasks? Will it perform more than that? Yeah, absolutely, right? It's S35VN, so it's good to go. And then when you need to sharpen it up. It shouldn't be that difficult, and you can go back to using it. I have no issues with that whatsoever. It says Protech USA up front. That's fine, S35VN. And then on the other side, it has the George design logo, which I think is pretty nice. Pretty limited billboarding. I truthfully don't have a problem with that. I really like this tumbling. Normally, I like kind of a semi-reflective tumbling, the light grain structure, but they went all for like battle worn. I mean, this really looks like it has been through it. This is heavy, sort of really beat up sort of concrete look, but it is even and it looks great. I am a big fan of that. I would very much, if I had a, you know, if I was gonna order a new Protech right now and the idea was to go ahead and just beat the crap out of it, I would go for that finish, because that finish will hide. As you can see, this is a user, and it does have marks on it, but the finish is hiding everything, right? Here, turn it just slightly this way. You can see some of those upward, it's actually really hard to see some of the upward lines where he's been using it. I mean, you can see here, this has all been used. Look how well this finish hides use. It's great. I know people are like, why does it matter if it hides use or not? It's made to be used. You should wear the scars proudly. Because whatever, I like that my knives look good. I can care about that if I want to. I think this is a great finish. I think it looks awesome, and I would go for it. Let's take a look back here. So these come together at a seam like most Protechs. I think that's fine. Keeps the design strong, and it looks good, right? You've got a little area down here for a lanyard that is completely and totally out of the way, right? We're at the point in the knife world where it's kind of inexcusable to have a lanyard hole that's like, let's emphasize this and just move everything else out of the way, right? There are too many good designs out there for that to be excusable anymore, and Protech has obviously caught on to that because they did this correctly. Here's a great way to do this. If you want a lanyard, there you go. If you don't want a lanyard, then it's just a thing back there that looks like it goes along with the design. You can just ignore it, right? Pocket clip, fantastic. There is a slot milled into the aluminum to accept the pocket clip, which means it's not going anywhere. The screws are recessed. It is absolutely deep carry. It has a little tiny bit of a build, not that big of a deal. If it bends out, or just take it out, bend it back. If it breaks off, contact Protech. Right, as far as I know, Protech's got a great warranty, so that's fine. Very, very easy in and out of the pocket. Super easy. Protech knives always get their pocket clips right. They always get, I mean, like, everything is just in the right place. That's why I like Protech. They're just like, here, this is a knife, and it needs to deploy, it needs to cut, and it goes back in the pocket, right? I mean, they have a few crazy designs, right? But for the most part, it's like, this is obviously a tool. This is, I mean, this one's blue, looks nice, but it's a tool. It's a very convenient tool. Now, the downside to an automatic knife is exactly what you saw there. Let's talk about the pro first. The pro is that if you're doing something, right, if you're working and then you run into a situation where you need to cut something and your non-dominant hand is busy, or whichever hand, one hand is busy, you get this knife out of your pocket, right? You simply have to push a button and it will deploy. Unless you have, you know, peanut butter in there or sand or whatever you were cutting, it'll probably still deploy even, you know, in that situation too. It's a powerful spring. Now you make your cut. Now you do have to, you know, if it was a manual knife, like the Griptilian, this you can just pull down and it kind of swings shut, or you can even do this and it'll just fall into place, right? With an automatic knife, you do have to push the button, and then you have to apply consistent pressure to it, and then you have to be careful and push the blade all the way down into the locking position, because if you accidentally let that blade go, boom, it's going to fly out, and if you're not paying attention, you'll drop it, right? I think about being up on a ladder all the time and dropping it like a couple of stories down to to concrete, right? This is plenty durable, but, you know, 2-story drop to concrete, you know, there's a lot, at the very least, it's going to get pretty jacked up, right? And that's fine, but it's one of those things you have to pay attention to, is what I'm saying. You really have to pay attention to where you put your fingers, you know, and a lot of times, you know, my favorite tools are ones that I have to think about the least while I'm using them. Is it that big of a deal? No. It might take 10% more brain power to do that than it does with a manual knife, but it is something to pay attention to. I have definitely dropped automatic knives, side-opening automatic knives, because I have to remember to apply constant pressure to that blade, putting it away. This is an overemphasis on something, though, and let me be clear about this. That is not a reason to not buy an automatic knife. As with all things, you will adapt. If you've been carrying a manual knife and you're used to the, you know, the locking mechanism and the deployment method, and you really want to carry this, you will adapt to it. It might take you, you know, 3 days, it might take you a week, it might take you 2 weeks, but you will adapt to it if you're using it constantly. Just something to keep in mind. All right, so, oh yeah, and here's another thing. I'm just going to point this out. I have never had trouble with blade play on automatic knives. With the plunge lock or the button lock automatics, every now and then there'll be a slight amount of up and down play, but truthfully on this guy, I'm not feeling up and down play. There is some side-to-side play, but I'm going to give it a pass here because, number one, this is a user knife. It probably just needs to be adjusted. Number two, I have owned and handled a ton of Protechs, including the other 3 Protechs that this guy sent along. And aside from the OTF, the Dark Angel that I unboxed here recently, which is, it's normal for an OTF to have blade play, the other 2 don't have any. And the Protech that I've got doesn't have any. The other Protechs that I've ever handled, usually they can be adjusted to be both centered, smooth, and absolutely have no blade play. So that it might be a thing. I would say if you end up with a Protech that has some blade play, contact them. It's pretty uncommon. In fact, I would say it's exceptionally rare to have a Protech with a little bit of side-to-side blade play. All of the ones that I've had haven't. But just to be honest with you guys, that's what I'm experiencing here. Anyways, what's the final verdict on this guy? So the price on this guy, I think, comes in around about $170. Obviously, it goes up a little bit depending on the finish and the form it takes. This is a US-made automatic in S35VN designed by Les George, who is a famous knife maker and makes a lot of really great stuff. And then, did I say made in the USA, right? And in materials that are perfectly acceptable. I have no problem with that price at all. No problem with it at all. The problem is that it's not available right now, which kind of sucks. You can check out the link I've got down in the description if you want to pick that one up, or check Protech knives in general. This is a fantastic knife. It's going to be a little bit thicker than some people find pleasant versus some of the things that they've carried. I don't think it's that big of a deal. You know, like I said, it's a 3-finger position knife. Again, not that big of a deal. A little bit of a bill right here. Not that big of a deal. Here's something else I want to point out. I want to see if you guys can hear this. If I hold it like this isn't a functional thing. If I hold it like this and I allow for one of the scales to reverberate, let's see if you can hear this. I love that. If I'm holding it like this, it silences it and you don't hear it. But if I hold it like this, for whatever reason, that's cool. Ding. Oh, man. I love Protech. This is a great knife. Fantastic little EDC side opener. If you have an opportunity to pick one of these up, pick it up. This is going to go on my most recommended knives playlist. Thanks again at Addicted to EDC for sending this guy my way. Had a lot of fun with it. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.